AITA for secretly DNA testing my son and confirming he isn't biologically mine? I watched the DNA test results load on my screen with trembling hands. My worst fear lit up in bold letters. 0% probability of paternity. In that instant, my world shattered. I had to reread it 5 times, hoping I misinterpreted something. But the result was unmistakable. I'm not my son's biological father. For context, I, 34M, have been married to my wife Anna, 33F, for 8 years, and we have a 6-year-old son, Ben. From the moment Ben was born, I loved him more than I thought possible. I did all the late-night feedings, diaper changes, rocking him to sleep when he was colicky. I taught him to say Dada, held him when he took his first steps, and beamed with pride at his preschool graduation. He's my little buddy. But physically, well, Ben never looked much like me. He's got dark curly hair and big brown eyes, while I'm blonde with blue eyes. At first I didn't care. Lots of kids take after one parent more. My wife is Latina, and I'm white, so I figured maybe he just took more after her side. People would joke sometimes, "He doesn't have your nose," or "Where'd he get that curly hair?" I'd laugh it off, but inside, every comment planted a seed of doubt. I feel horrible even admitting this, but as Ben grew, I noticed more and more differences. He has a birthmark on his torso neither of us has in our families, that I know of. His facial features resemble my wife a lot, but absolutely nothing of me. Sometimes I'd hold him up to the mirror next to me, searching for some resemblance. Maybe the shape of the ears, the hairline, and coming up empty. It felt awful to even think, is he mine? Because as a father, you're just supposed to trust. I loved my wife, and I believed her. We had been through a rough patch about 7 years ago, right before she got pregnant. We were both working long hours and fighting over stupid things. She would stay late for work events, and I was buried in a big project at my job. We eventually reconciled, and she surprised me with news that we were expecting. I was overjoyed. That timeline, though, in hindsight, it gnawed at me, but I hated myself for even considering that she could have been unfaithful. Over the years, a few little things kept the doubts alive. One time, I found an old photo booth strip in a drawer of her and a male coworker, making goofy faces. They looked awfully chummy. When I asked, she laughed and said, "Oh, that's just from a team outing years ago. I forgot that was in there." I dropped it. Another time, about 6 years ago when Ben was a baby, she got a late-night text from an unsaved number that said, "Hey, you up?" I saw it flash on her phone at 1 a.m. while she was asleep. I confronted her, and she insisted it was a drunk text from a coworker that was meant for someone else. She even showed me the thread where he apologized the next morning for texting the wrong person. I believed her then. And maybe it truly was nothing. But together with everything else, these incidents kept that tiny voice of doubt alive in the back of my mind. The doubt ate at me. I'd be playing ball with my son in the yard, he'd laugh, and I'd feel a stab of guilt for secretly wondering if he's biologically mine. I looked at this wonderful little boy who calls me Daddy and felt ashamed that DNA even mattered to me. But part of me just needed to know. So, I bought a paternity test kit online. I felt like a total asshole doing it behind my wife's back, and if I was wrong, it would devastate her that I doubted her. But if I was right, well, then our whole marriage was built on a lie. Either way, I had to know. I waited until a Monday when I worked from home and my wife was at the office. I swabbed my cheek and then gently swabbed the inside of Ben's cheek while he was distracted watching Paw Patrol. I made it a silly science experiment game, he giggled and said, "Am I part dinosaur, Daddy?" I managed to smile and ruffle his hair, but inside I was dying of anxiety and guilt. I mailed off the samples and spent 2 agonizing weeks on edge. I could barely sleep or eat. Every time my wife casually asked, "You okay? You've been so quiet," I just say I was stressed about work. But I was really just obsessing over those impending results. Part of me was angry at myself for even doing this. Part of me was furious at her for putting me in a position where I ever felt I needed to. Yesterday, the email I'd been both dreading and craving arrived. "Your DNA test results are ready." My heart nearly stopped. I locked myself in the bathroom, hands literally shaking, and opened the link on my phone. The report came up and there it was. Ben is not my biological child. Probability of paternity, 0%. I don't have words for the feeling that washed over me. I felt like I was in freefall. The floor disappeared beneath my feet. I reread the result over and over. 0%. It wasn't a mistake. In that moment, I knew my life as I knew it was basically over. I splashed water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror, and didn't even recognize the guy looking back. I was sweating, trembling, eyes red and wild. I walked out of the bathroom and found my wife and son cuddled on the couch watching a movie. My son looked up at me with his big brown eyes, those eyes that apparently came from someone else. I had to grip the hallway table to steady myself because I felt a surge of anger and grief so strong I might collapse. My wife saw my face and immediately looked concerned. She asked if I was okay. I heard myself say in a cold, robotic voice, "Not really. We need to talk. Now." I told my son to go to his room and play for a bit because Mom and Dad needed to talk. He toddled off, not thinking much of it. Thank God he was too young to sense the tension. As soon as our son was out of earshot, I pulled up the email on my phone and thrust it toward my wife. My voice was shaking, but I got the words out. I did a DNA test on Ben. Look at it. She frowned in confusion and took the phone. She read the first few lines, and her expression, it changed to utter shock and then panic. She said something like, This says. What is this? Why would you do that? Her voice was trembling but had a tinge of anger too, like I was in the wrong. That broke the dam. I exploded. I yelled, "Why do you think? It says 0%! Zero, Anna! He isn't mine!" She burst into tears, grabbing at my arm, babbling, "How could you do this behind my back? The test must be wrong! There's no way!" I yanked my arm away and snarled, "Cut the bullshit! It's not wrong, Anna. Is there something you need to tell me? Who's his father?" I was yelling like a madman. I had never raised my voice to my wife like that, ever. I was just in pure fight-or-flight mode, heart pounding out of my chest, fury like I've never felt. She just kept sobbing, saying, No, he's yours. Of course he's yours." She claimed I must have done the test wrong or the lab messed up. Desperate, obvious lies. I told her I used a reputable lab and double-checked everything. Then I remember shouting, "Stop lying to me! I know, I have proof. Who did you sleep with?" She collapsed onto the couch, face in her hands, crying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Over and over. My whole body went cold. That was it. The admission I never wanted to hear. I was so enraged I punched the wall. I had never done something like that before. There's still a dent in the drywall by the TV. She flinched and cried harder, saying, "It was just once. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm sorry." She still wouldn't say who. She kept saying it didn't matter, it was a stupid mistake. My mind was racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. Who? When? Our son is 6, so this had been a lie for 6 years of his life, and mine. I felt like the biggest fool on the planet, and a part of me was devastated on another level, because I realized that in discovering this truth, I had in some way lost my son, the little boy I have raised and loved as my own. Or at least, I would lose him, because there's no way I could stay after this. That thought hit me, and I just started shaking with sobs of my own. My wife reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away like her touch burned. I just kept saying, "How could you do this? How could you do this to us?" She was bawling, begging me not to leave, saying she had been scared to tell me, that she prayed Ben was mine, and tried to pretend that one night never happened. Hearing this, something snapped in me. I felt done. At some point I noticed Ben's door slightly open down the hall. His little face was peeking out, eyes huge and scared because his parents were screaming. My heart absolutely broke. I had scared my own child. Well, the child I thought was mine. In that moment, I didn't care about the DNA. He was a scared little boy hearing his mom and dad fighting. I immediately lowered my voice. I told my wife through clenched teeth, "We're not doing this in front of him." I walked over and gently closed his door, telling him, "It's okay, buddy, everything's okay," in the calmest voice I could muster, which was anything but calm. I heard him whimper, and it killed me. I felt like the worst father, and maybe in that moment I still was his father in every way that mattered. Back in the living room, I quietly but firmly told my wife I needed some time to think, and I was going out. She grabbed my sleeve and begged me not to go. I shrugged her off. I was afraid if I stayed, I'd start screaming again or do something worse. I just needed to not be there. As I headed for the door, she kept pleading through tears, "Please, we can fix this. We can talk about it. Please don't tell anyone, please." I was at the front door, about to leave, when she finally choked out a confession that hit me like a truck. Through her sobs, I heard, "It was Tom." I froze with my hand on the doorknob. Tom. As in my best friend Tom, 35M. The guy I've known since college, who was the best man at our wedding. The Uncle Tom, who my son is literally named after. Ben's middle name is Thomas. I slowly turned around and just said, "Tom! Tom!" Like I couldn't believe I heard right. My wife was curled up on the floor by then, face buried in her knees. She nodded and whispered, "It was one time. Before we fixed things, I broke it off with him, and he moved away shortly after. I'm so sorry." I think I let out a hysterical laugh, or maybe it was a sob. I honestly don't know. My vision went red. I stormed out without another word, slamming the door so hard the whole frame shook. So, that's where I am now. It's past midnight, and I'm sitting in my car in an empty parking lot, typing this out, because I literally have nowhere to go and no idea what to do. My phone has dozens of missed calls and texts from my wife. The latest one said our son woke up crying and asking for me, and that she hopes I'll come home to at least comfort him even if I'm furious with her. Reading that, I just started bawling like a baby. Because as angry as I am, I miss my son. Yes, I still call him my son, biology be damned. I love that little boy more than anything, but I also feel this crushing weight of betrayal and agony knowing he's not mine, and that my wife and my best friend, two people I loved and trusted most, did this to me behind my back. I haven't responded to her messages. I can't bear to talk to her right now. I know eventually I have to go home, if only for my son's sake. But I don't know how I'm going to look either of them in the eyes. I don't know how to pretend everything's okay for Ben, when everything is absolutely not okay. My wife is begging me to keep this secret. She literally said, "Please don't tell anyone, not even Tom, it'll destroy families." She wants me to go on being Ben's dad as if nothing happened, and says we can work through this. But how am I supposed to do that? How can I ever trust her again? And what about Tom? He's God knows where living his life, not knowing he has a son. Or did he know? Was he laughing behind my back all these years? Part of me wants to call him and unload all my rage on him, or worse. Another part of me never wants to speak to either of them again. And then there's Ben. Sweet little Ben, who has no idea any of this adult crap is going on. I'm his daddy. I'm the one who kisses his boo-boos and reads him bedtime stories. My heart breaks at the thought of not being his dad anymore. But every time I remember that test result, I feel sick. I feel like my entire life is a lie now. I realize this is a novel already. I'm sorry. I'm just destroyed, and have no one I can talk to in real life about this. I can't exactly call up a friend. My best friend is the one who fathered my child behind my back. And I don't want to tell family yet because it's humiliating and will blow things up even more. So I turn to Reddit. I know the question sounds almost absurd after all this, but I'll ask it anyway. Am I the asshole for secretly DNA testing my son and blowing up my family with the truth? My wife certainly thinks what I did was a huge breach of trust. And in calmer moments, I wonder if I went about it the wrong way. Maybe if I'd just confronted her with my worries years ago, we wouldn't be in this hell now. I don't know. I was desperate for the truth, and now I have it, and it feels like the worst-case scenario. I don't know what the next step is. Divorce? Trying to somehow salvage this for my son's sake? I feel like no matter what I do, someone's going to get hurt. Me, my son, my wife, even the bastard who caused this. If I ever find him. Or I guess I know who he is now. I just keep replaying the moment I open the DNA results, and part of me wishes I had never done it. That I had just lived in blissful ignorance, raising my boy, and never known, but then I'd still be living a lie. I'm sorry if this is rambling. My life exploded tonight, and I have no idea what to do. So, Reddit? AITA for secretly testing my son's DNA and blowing up my family with the truth? Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented and reached out. I didn't expect my post to blow up like it did. I'm still trying to read through all the responses, but I figured I owe an update after the whirlwind of the last couple days. It's been about 48 hours since I found out the truth. After typing out my original post from my car, I eventually went home that night. Actually, it was closer to dawn. I couldn't sleep at all, so around 4 a.m. I drove back to the house. I was still furious, but mostly just exhausted and numb. I quietly went inside, trying not to wake anyone. I peeked into my son's room, and my heart just cracked wide open. He was awake, sitting up hugging a stuffed dinosaur like he'd been crying. He looked at me with this scared, relieved face and said in the tiniest voice, "Daddy, you came back." I almost lost it right there. I crawled into bed with him and wrapped him in my arms. I told him, "Of course I came back, buddy. I'm here. Daddy's here." He clung to me and wouldn't let go. I just held him until he fell asleep. I have no idea how long. In that moment, I didn't care about DNA or betrayal or anything. That was my son, and he needed me. In the morning, I woke up to my wife knocking softly on the door. She asked if she could come in. My son was still asleep against my chest. I gently slid out of bed without waking him and stepped into the hallway with her. She looked like hell eyes swollen, hair a mess. She immediately started whispering apologies, saying she was sorry for everything, sorry I found out that way, sorry for hurting me. I told her firmly I wasn't ready to talk to her, and my priority right now was making sure our son was okay. She begged me to have a conversation with her later, maybe couples therapy, anything. I told her we would eventually talk, but not now. I said I needed time and space. She realized pushing me right then was a bad idea, so she backed off, still sobbing. The rest of that morning, I spent entirely with my son. I got him ready for school. My wife usually does drop off, but I insisted on taking him. On the drive, he asked me in a small voice, "Are you and Mommy mad at each other?" I nearly choked on my words. I told him, "We had a disagreement, but we both love you so much. None of this is your fault, okay?" He seemed to accept that and asked if I'd be home for dinner. I promised I would. After dropping him off, I sat in the car and just broke down crying. Part of me wanted to scream into the void, but I had to pull it together and figure out what to do next. I realized I needed to confront Tom, my former best friend. If I didn't, the rage would consume me. So I drove to a park. I didn't want to be at home for this call, and I called him. It was around 9 a.m. by then. He picked up, sounding chipper. "Hey man, this is a surprise." Hearing his friendly voice made me sick. I cut right to it. I said, "I know what you did. I know Ben is your son." Dead silence on the line for a long moment. Then he just said, "What?" in this utterly shocked voice. I repeated, voice shaking with fury. "I did a DNA test. Anna told me everything. I know you slept with her and that Ben isn't mine. How could you, Tom?" I'll admit, I unleashed a lot of profanity and yelling at that point. Tom started crying, or at least his voice sounded choked up. He kept saying, oh my God, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry." He said it only happened once, that we were on a break. Yes, my wife and I were separated for like 2 weeks during that rough patch. And he regretted it immediately. He claimed she never told him she got pregnant. He said he moved shortly after because he couldn't face me and needed to get away from what he did. I let him talk, but I also tore into him. I called him every name I could think of and told him he was a piece of sh*t. I asked if he had any idea Ben could be his. He swore up and down he had no clue, that my wife never told him she was pregnant. He said he only found out via social media a couple years ago that we had a kid, but he assumed it was mine since we were married. He sounded honestly stunned to learn Ben isn't mine biologically. I heard him freaking out. Jesus Christ, I have a son? I don't know what to even say. That line made me even angrier for some reason. Like he suddenly thinks he has any right to call Ben his son. I basically told him as much, that he was just a sperm donor who happened to my wife, and he has no rights to Ben. Yeah, I was harsh. I was seeing red. He said he understood, and that he wasn't trying to overstep, but maybe we should figure out what's best for Ben. I lost it at that. I told him the best thing for Ben was for Tom to stay the hell out of his life. Ben has a dad me, and Tom forfeited any right to be involved the second he betrayed me, and then disappeared. Tom was sobbing by the end of the call. He said he knows he ruined everything, that he never intended to hurt me or anyone, and that he would do whatever I thought was right. He said if I wanted him gone forever, he'd disappear and never contact us again. I found out he actually moved back to our state about a year ago and had been meaning to reconnect with me, but was scared. Jesus, what was he going to do? Act like nothing happened? I basically told him to go F*** himself and hung up. It was a brutally emotional call, but afterward I felt a strange sense of calm. At least I got to scream at him and let out some of that anger. When I got home, my wife was hovering anxiously, asking where I'd been. I flat out told her I talked to Tom. She looked like she might faint. She started crying again and asking why I would do that. She said she was afraid I'd do something drastic, or that Tom might try to contact us now. She kept saying this is exactly what I was afraid of. I didn't want him in our lives. I just stared at her in disbelief. I told her, well, maybe you should have thought of that before sleeping with him and lying to me for years. She kept saying she was sorry, and that she didn't want to lose me or have Tom disrupt our family. She actually had the nerve to suggest that I should have left it alone, and that telling Tom only made things more complicated. That pissed me off all over again. I told her straight up that there were going to be a lot of complicated things now, lawyers, custody, all that, and she had no one to blame but herself and Tom. She asked what I meant by lawyers and custody. I told her I want a divorce. The moment I said that, she started wailing. She begged me not to throw away our marriage, to at least try therapy, that she'd spend the rest of her life making it up to me. I told her I don't see any possible way I could ever trust her again, and that I absolutely am not interested in staying married to someone who could betray me so deeply. Then she asked, what about Ben? Please, he needs you. Don't do anything rash. That hit me, because she's right. As much as I hate her right now, Ben does need me. I'm his dad in every way that matters, except DNA. I told her, no matter what, I will always be his father. Divorce or not, I'm not abandoning him, but you and we're done. She kept sobbing that she loves me, it was a mistake, etc. I just walked away and took a shower because I was at my emotional limit. Later that day, I actually had a consultation with a divorce attorney. Found one through a friend of a friend. I explained everything. The lawyer said this is, unfortunately, more common than you'd think. He told me since I'm on the birth certificate and we were married when he was born, I'm the legal father regardless of biology. That means I have rights but also potentially obligations like child support, unless I pursue a path to disestablish paternity. He also said I could sue my wife for paternity fraud, but those cases are tough. Honestly, I'm not sure I even want to go that route. It's all overwhelming. Right now, my plan is to go through with divorcing my wife. We haven't told our son yet, obviously. And I'm dreading that conversation when it comes. For now, we're in an extremely awkward limbo at home, trying to act normal for Ben's sake. I'm sleeping in the guest room. We keep interactions brief and civil when he's around. The only person in real life who knows any of this, besides me, my wife, and Tom, is my own mom. I haven't told any other family or friends yet. I'm too embarrassed and angry to deal with that right now. I'll have to once divorce proceedings start moving. As for Tom, after that one call, I blocked him. I have no desire for further conversation. He did text me once from another number, basically apologizing again and saying he'll respect my wishes and stay away. I didn't respond and blocked that number too. My wife keeps trying to talk to me when our son is asleep or not around. She's desperate to fix this, but I keep shutting it down. The trust is annihilated. I told her the only thing I'm willing to discuss with her is a co-parenting plan for Ben and how we'll handle things when I move out. I'm planning to stay in the house for now purely for our son. No way I'm leaving him in this situation, but once we figure out custody, one of us will have to move, likely me. The weirdest thing is how in front of our son we're both trying so hard to act like everything is okay. It's surreal and heartbreaking. He senses something, I'm sure, but we're trying not to let him see our anger. I hate that he's going to suffer because of all this. I did find out one more thing that's been gnawing at me. I asked my wife why she chose to name our son after Tom, his middle name, if she was trying to bury this affair. Was it some kind of sick joke? She swears it was just because she liked the name, and that at the time she was convinced, or trying to convince herself, the baby was mine, so she wasn't thinking of that association. I honestly don't know what to believe. It's messed up. Anyway, I'm resolved to go through with the divorce. My heart is shattered for my son, but I just cannot stay with my wife after this. I haven't worked out exactly how to handle the paternity aspect with Ben. The lawyer said I have options to legally disestablish paternity, so I'd no longer be on the hook financially since he's not biologically mine. But that thought makes me feel sick. I might hate my wife right now, but I love my kid. Maybe that makes me a fool, but I can't abandon him. At the same time, I don't know how I'll handle co-parenting and sharing him, knowing the truth. The idea of having to eventually see Tom potentially in his life, if he ever tried to assert rights, makes my blood boil. My wife swears she has no intention of ever involving Tom, and that she hasn't spoken to him in years. I actually believe that, because Tom seemed genuinely shocked about Ben. But who knows? This update is long too, sorry. I just wanted to let those who care know that I'm alive and things are moving in a direction. Maybe not a happy one, but a direction nonetheless. TLDR of the update. I confronted Tom. It was ugly, but I got some closure. I told my wife I want a divorce and saw a lawyer, and now I'm focusing on being the best dad I can for Ben through all of this. My wife wants to reconcile, but I don't see that happening. My priority is my son, even though this truth has broken me. I'll update again if anything major happens or once we figure out next steps. For now, I'm just taking it day by day. Update 2. Final update. It's been about 6 months since my world imploded. The divorce is nearly finalized now, and I'm writing this from my new apartment. Moving out of our old house was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I remember packing my things while my little boy sat on the bed, watching with a confused look on his face. He asked, "Daddy, are you going on a trip?" It took everything in me not to break down. I just told him, "Daddy has a new home nearby, and you'll have 2 houses now, one with Mommy and one with me." Saying those words felt like swallowing glass. The first night in my own place, after I set up a little bedroom for Ben, he was so excited to have a big boy bed at Daddy's house. We tried to make it an adventure, but after I read him a bedtime story and turned off the lights, he cried and asked why I couldn't stay with him and Mommy. I hugged him tight and reassured him that both Mommy and Daddy love him very much. We just can't live together anymore. He's too young to fully understand, but he nodded and eventually fell asleep in my arms, just like old times. After he dozed off, I went to the living room and sobbed quietly. The silence in this new home was overwhelming. Co-parenting has been civil so far, but it's a daily struggle emotionally. We have a schedule where Ben splits time between us. I live only 10 minutes away from my ex's house, so at least transitions are easier. Every time I drop him off at that front door, my former home, it rips open the wound again. Sometimes I see my ex-wife at the door. She always looks teary and remorseful when I bring our son back. We keep our interactions polite and brief, strictly about Ben. I can tell she wants to say more. She occasionally whispers, "I'm sorry," or "I miss you," but I never engage. I can't. My rage at her and Tom has cooled from a raging fire to a dull ache. I'm no longer on the verge of exploding, but the pain is still very much there. I've started therapy on my own to sort through it. The betrayal messed me up badly in terms of trust and self-esteem. I'm nowhere near even thinking about dating again. The idea of trusting someone new is terrifying. Maybe with time, but not now. As for Tom, true to his word, he has not contacted me or my ex at all since that day. To my knowledge, he's made no attempt to see Ben either. Part of me is eternally grateful for that. Another part occasionally wonders if, down the line, he'll try to insert himself. My lawyer advised that since I'm the legal father and we've established custody in the divorce, Tom would have a very hard time asserting any rights without upending a lot, especially since he's shown no interest so far. I pray it stays that way. I still have nightmares sometimes that he shows up one day wanting to play daddy. My ex-wife is, well, not doing great. A mutual friend mentioned she's fallen into a depression after I left. I believe it. When I see her during custody exchanges, she looks hollow and lost. I do feel a twinge of pity for her. She seems genuinely remorseful. But then I remember that all this pain stems from her choices, and Tom's. I only interact with her as much as necessary for our son. She even wrote me a long apology letter at one point, begging for forgiveness. Reading it just made me feel empty and sad. I didn't respond. I can't forgive her, at least not now, maybe not ever. I maintain civility for parenting purposes, but that's it. Meanwhile, I'm doing my best to ensure Ben feels loved and secure. He's a resilient kid, but I know this is hard for him. He's generally happy, but he's had a few clingy moments and tantrums that I suspect are due to the upheaval. I'm watching closely and would absolutely get him a therapist if needed, but so far we seem to be managing with lots of reassurance and consistency. I'll admit, there are moments that are really hard for me regarding Ben. I promised I wouldn't let the DNA thing affect how I see him, and I won't, but I'm only human. Occasionally he'll do something, like laugh a certain way or make a certain face, that reminds me of Tom, and it's like a punch to the gut. I immediately feel guilty for even noticing. None of this is Ben's fault. He did nothing wrong. When those thoughts creep in, I push them away and hug my son a little tighter. I've taken some advice from comments on my original post to heart. I actively remind myself that he's my son in every way that counts. Biology be damned. Most days I succeed in internalizing that. Some days I have to fake it until I make it. I haven't told anyone beyond my mom about the paternity. There's no reason for Ben to ever hear that he isn't biologically mine. As far as I'm concerned, that secret will stay between the adults. My mom, his grandma, was furious at my ex initially, but she's been incredibly supportive of me and an absolute rock for Ben, as always. She flat out told me, quote, "He's my grandson. Nothing changes that." That meant the world to me. The divorce will be final next month. Splitting assets and custody was surprisingly drama-free. My ex felt so guilty she basically let me take whatever I needed to start over. We're selling the house, and she's moving in with her sister for now. We agreed on a fair custody arrangement, 50-50. Legally, things are wrapping up. Emotionally, I'm still a mess, but a functional mess, if that makes sense. I go to work, I take care of my son, I even smile and laugh when I'm with him. But when I'm alone, the weight of it all hits me. Some nights after I put Ben to bed, I just sit and stare at the wall, thinking about how unfair this all is, how I did nothing wrong yet ended up in this nightmare. Will I ever forgive my ex-wife? I don't know. Not anytime soon, if ever. The best I can do is be civil with her to co-parent. She wrote me that long letter I mentioned, basically a last-ditch plea. I read it, and surprisingly I didn't feel rage, just deep sadness. I didn't respond. There's nothing left to say. She made her choices, and now we all live with the consequences. A few people ask if I regret doing the DNA test. It's a tough question. On one hand, that knowledge absolutely destroyed the life I knew. On the other, living in ignorance would have meant living a lie, and the truth might have come out eventually in even worse ways. I wish none of this ever happened, but I don't ultimately regret uncovering the truth. I do, however, regret the years I spent oblivious to the betrayal. At this point, I'm focusing on the future. My life looks very different than it did half a year ago, and I'm slowly coming to terms with that. I'm an almost 35-year-old single dad, raising a boy I love more than anything. That love is what keeps me going. Despite all the pain and anger and loss, that love has remained pure and strong. Every time he runs into my arms or says, "I love you, Daddy," I know that staying in his life is the right thing to do, DNA be damned.